A practical Ferrari. While that might seem like kind of a strange concept, that is this car, the GTC4 Lusso, at least until Ferrari makes an SUV or crossover. It is the replacement for the Ferrari FF, and unlike the FF, you can get this in both a V12 all-wheel drive and also a rear-wheel drive turbocharged V8. This has a 3.9-liter twin-turbo V8 that is more directly related to the one in the Portofino than the one in the 488, and this car makes 602 horsepower and 561 pound-feet of torque. Because it is rear-wheel drive only, you actually lose a little bit of the weight up front, 121 pounds to be exact, and it's significantly less complex. That all-wheel drive system in the V12 starting in the FF was extremely complicated. It actually caused an entire Top Gear episode of them comparing the FF V12 all-wheel drive versus the Bentley all-wheel drive. It was really complex, rear-wheel drive only. Now, you do lose out a little bit of horsepower compared to the V12. V12 was 680 versus 602 in the V8, but you get a lot more torque, 561 pound-feet versus only 518 in the all-wheel drive V12. Performance-wise, it's almost exactly the same. 3.5 to 60 for the V8 and then 3.4 for the V12. But the big difference is this one will only do 199 miles an hour. It does not hit that magical 200 barrier. If you want to go over 200 miles an hour in your four-seater Ferrari, get the V12. That one would do 208. Exterior styling. The GTC4 can be classified as a shooting brake, and it's got almost like a wagon-like profile, but it only has 2 doors, but 4 seats on the inside. On the outside, I think it looks amazing. In this black color with these really nice wheels, the updated lights, it's got quad tail lights instead of the dual like you would find on the FF, updated front end styling. It's got great proportions to it, but I don't think it's as easy to love as something like an 812 or a 488, because those are kind of your classic GT or supercar mid-engine proportions. This, some people might think, looks a little bit weird, especially if you think about the previous generation Ferrari FF. I think one of the biggest criticisms of that vehicle is it just looks kind of weird. They made massive improvements with the GTC4. Now, between the T, this V8 rear-wheel drive, and the V12 all-wheel drive, the changes are extremely subtle. Honestly, if you pulled up 2 of them next to each other and they were both off, I personally would have a pretty hard time telling. I think there's a couple wheel options that are slightly different, exhaust tips are slightly different, but almost everything is exactly the same. There aren't absurd badges all over the place that tell you that this one only has a V8 on it. Overall, I think this thing looks absolutely amazing when it's driving on the road. We just had it parked next to my friend Josefa's 488 Spider, and it looked just as exotic and just as amazing. Before we start driving, let's talk a little bit about the interior of the GTC4. As you would expect with a modern Ferrari, it is extremely nice here. There's not a ton of carbon fiber all over the inside, which I actually think is nice because this is a Grand Touring car, and all the leather and everything and the trim makes it feel a little more towards the luxury side than what you would expect the inside of a mid-engine Ferrari 488 to feel like. The steering wheel, as with almost all Ferraris, is covered in buttons and controls, your engine start-stop, your turn signals that you push and pull, that you just push, and then your drive mode control. You've got these 2 very nice fixed paddle shifters, centered tachometer, as with like all Ferraris, you got the giant tachometer in the middle. This one is aluminum finish and looks really nice. Got 2 digital screens on either side, a 10.3-inch touchscreen in the middle. If you want to option Apple CarPlay on your $200,000, $300,000 Ferrari GTC4, please pay $4,000. That's an expensive option for Apple CarPlay. Got some cup holders here in the middle, pretty spacious and wide open. The panoramic sunroof that costs more than a Honda Fit, $20,000. That's an option, and obviously it adds more weight, increases your center of gravity. But in something like a GTC4, who cares? It makes the cabin feel a lot more light, a lot more airy and open. I think it's absolutely worth it to get. This thing also has usable rear seats, actually usable. An adult can sit back there. Now, not for too long of a period of time. So I'm 6'3", and sitting back there, I wasn't truly comfortable, but I could fit. But even if you have kids or shorter friends or something, they can definitely sit back there. But this is still a Ferrari, despite it being a 4-seater shooting brake style Ferrari, and we got to talk about what it's like to drive. It's not slow. I mean, it's got a twin turbo V8, even though it's down 4 cylinders compared to the V12. Like I said earlier, it makes more torque. Now it's also rear-wheel drive, so that took out over 120 pounds from the front. It slightly increased the weight bias to the rear. They also wanted this because of that different weight and everything, the handling characteristics are slightly different. So this is designed to be a little more sporty. Retuned dampers, adjusted rear wheel steering. It's the little bit lighter and more nimble, but it's not that light. It's 4,112 pounds quoted from Ferrari. That's pretty hefty. The dual clutch transmission in this car behaves brilliantly. Fast downshifts, good upshifts. You also have engine stop-start. When I was just stopped at that red light, engine turned off. Marginal help in fuel efficiency. Speaking of fuel efficiency, not sure how many buyers are too terribly concerned with that, but it does help your overall range to get better fuel efficiency. About 4 mpg better than the V12. Talking about value, the GTC4 Lusso T will save you about 10 grand per cylinder, almost a $40,000 savings compared to the V12. But when we are talking here about a car that is essentially $300,000, that $40,000 delta isn't as big of a deal, especially when you start putting options on it. I mean, this $20,000 panoramic glass roof will cut that delta in half. So at the end of the day, it's what you're gonna look into is, do you want that rear wheel drive twin turbo V8 feeling, the extra torque? Or do you want, see, engine just turned off. Or do you want a naturally aspirated V12 that screams to 8,000 RPM and all-wheel drive? This is a Ferrari that I view as something you can truly, truly daily drive because it's comfortable, it's spacious, it's practical. With all-wheel drive, you could drive it all year round. I know people who have daily driven FFs in the snow. They put winter tires on it. You could do that. So if you live in a climate like Michigan, maybe the rear-wheel drive one doesn't make quite as much sense. You would want the all-wheel drive one. If you live somewhere that's nice all year round, you have the fortune of having beautiful roads and nice weather, no snow, rear-wheel drive will be a little more nimble. It's more the driver one of the GT car, if that makes any sense. But I would say, after briefly driven this, I think living in Michigan, based on my specific set of what I look for in a car, I think I would almost take this over a 488. I know that sounds kind of crazy. I've spent a lot of time in 488s, and they're great cars. But here in Michigan, we don't have awesome canyons or great driving roads. The tracks here are all right, but they're not like brilliant tracks that you would want to take your 488 Spider on or something. This is comfortable. It's quick. I think it looks absolutely amazing. It's great to drive. It's a Ferrari that I could use all the time in somewhere like Michigan. This is, again, me personally. I am not saying that this is better than the 488 because the 488 is a mid-engine supercar. This is the Grand Touring car, but I really, really like this car. I love the way it looks. I like the way it drives, but at the end of the day, if the money ends up kind of similar, I'm getting that screaming V12 and that crazy complex all-wheel drive system. Still makes some good noises. Wow, this is a great car. Oh yes, I want one. So in summary, this car is, I think, a pretty unique car, a replacement for the FF, a 4-seater, 2-door luxury high-performance GT. If you think about who competes against this, I mean, we have something like an Aston Martin DBS Superleggera, but that won't be as comfortable or practical in the back, and that's rear-wheel drive only with that V12. I mean, people have compared these to Bentley Continental GTs with the W12, high-end versions of those, but then there's still a price difference. This is really kind of a unique vehicle. You could buy 1.5 to almost 2 Panamera turbos for the price of one of these, but I don't know how often people are cross-shopping them brand new. Used, I mean, if you could afford it, I think I'd go up and get myself the Ferrari because, again, you have a prancing horse in your garage. That is a massive win. In my brief time I spent with the GTC4 Lusso, I can say I think it is beautifully designed. Interior is beautiful. It is nice to drive. It's a larger car and it's heavier. Like I said, over 4,000 pounds. But with that rear wheel steering, it feels well planted. It feels nimble enough to drive around. It feels undeniably exotic. That twin turbo V8 is a great motor. Does it have the charisma and the emotion of the NA V12? No, but in all objective measures, it is as good of an engine. Rear-wheel drive definitely has it a little more tail-happy than an all-wheel drive version would be, but that's, you're going into it knowing you're getting the rear-wheel drive version, so you have to want that with this car. Absolutely check this out at platinummotorcars.com. It's in their inventory. They always have amazing cars for sale there. This vehicle is listed as a 2018 model year with just over, I believe, 7,700 miles, somewhere in that range. for just over $200,000. That is a lot of money, but compared to how much these things cost new, represents actually a pretty good value. Hope you guys like this video. Make sure you check out my walk around vlog style tour of the GTC4 where we show you some of the details. I hop in the back and test out the rear space, and we found some interesting things on the rear options plaque. But this is the Ferrari GTC4 Lusso. Thanks for watching, guys.